Welcome to our latest concert. We've done every year. This is the 10th concert for the Hospice that we've done. Thank you so much for turning up. I do have to tell you though, if there's a fire, you can go out that way, you can go out that way, you can go out that way, whichever way you like, but not the windows. And that one it wouldn't have mattered, but the next one it probably would matter if you haven't turned your phone on to silent. So if you could do that, that would be lovely, and we'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name's Andy, I'm your musical director for the afternoon. The sharp-eyed among you will notice that I was also the MD for this concert last year, and I find myself in a position of doing it again this year. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. That opening piece was a piece of music called Star Lake. It was written by a Salvation Army composer called Eric Ball for a band camp in America called the Star Lake Camp. Good concert opener. Bit of a change of scenery now. We're going to give you some film music. Let me find my notes. I can't do all this off the top of my head. That next film comes from a 1986 animated film called An American Tale, which is about a small Russian mouse who emigrates to New York and loses his family in the process. James Horner wrote the music, and Linda Ronstadt and James Ingram took the pop version of what we're about to play to number 2 on the Billboard charts. It's a very nice tenor horn feature to start with, and it's called Somewhere Out There.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon. Good, excellent. I'm very glad you're here. The band's very glad you're here, but you wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be here, if it wasn't for one person that's here today. And the band collectively felt it was right for us to stop at this stage in our development and acknowledge someone who started all of this off many years ago, and that's Peter Rowton, who's sitting down here in the front row. It was back in 1981, 82, we think.
You were 13 at the time.
No, that's before then. So, thank you. Yes, that'd be nice. 1981, I think it was, when Peter gathered together a small group of players, about 5 or 6 of us, including Andrew on bass, his son, and we went to form a small brass group with the aim of doing some concerts for the council and for our community. And we had to think of a name. What name could we use? So we thought maybe because the council were involved, we'll call it Barking and Dagenham Brass. But that was a bit of a mouthful. So, okay, let's shorten that to BAD Brass. But then that becomes Bad Brass. No, it can't work. That doesn't work. And we were rehearsing at that time in a cricket pavilion. So we called ourselves Pavilion Brass. And since then, well, actually from the start of them, the ethos and the values of the band were always the same, and they're still the same today. And that's what Peter laid down for us, that it's a group that can meet together no matter what your ability is, just to enjoy making music. And we'll do concerts for our community. We'll do a lot of stuff for old folks' homes and school fetes and so on and so forth. And the band began to grow from 5 or 6 players, more joined us, we got a conductor. It's important to remember as well that Peter was always supported by Kath, his wife, who came and made the tea for us week in, week out. Very, very important job. And, so we grew and grew and grew. And our main concert every year was on Christmas Eve at the Civic Centre in Dagenham, where we would play in the marble halls outside the council chamber for the mayor and his staff, and we'd raise money for his charity. It was really, really special occasions. So, given the fact that none of us would be here today, the band wouldn't be here today with Peter, we are delighted to acknowledge his work and commitment for us and support for us by making him our honorary president. So, Peter, could you come up and join me on stage? Just give him a round of applause. Don't fall off there. No, that's all right. So, just very, very briefly, that personal insight, as Peter said, if you heard him, I first met Peter in 1977. That's right. Okay. I had a middle parting and he had a side parting. I was a spotty teenager. He wasn't. But Peter started a play leader band because it was formed from kids who were involved in the play leader schemes in Dagenham Park. Some of you may remember those schemes. And we had some real adventures, and Peter really taught me about what it meant to be in a band. We rehearsed for a while in a play leader hut, as they were called, which was just breeze blocks and a metal shutter. And in the winter, it was so cold, we were there with our coats and hats on, and steam would be coming out the end of our instruments because it was so cold. And yes, actually, that's right, yes, one rehearsal, someone set fire to the hut whilst we were playing inside it as well. And we did tours of old folks' homes, didn't we, playing carols and Christmas concerts. And there was a great time. Peter, at that time, was playing cornet. He would play with one hand, conduct with the other, which was always an interesting technique. But this man had the tone that was so beautiful in the cornet, and through some sort of osmosis, I've managed to pick up some of that. And so I owe a lot to him. We had another adventure. We used to play the Dagenham Town Show. Do you remember the Dagenham Town Show? Those of you who went to that. And we did our stint in the main arena, or wherever it was. And then they said to us, can you help us out? We've got a dog obedience class. Can you help us out with that? And what we wanted to do is we had to play a piece of music and then stop suddenly, and the last dog to sit down was out. So that's what we started to do. We started to play that, we went 3 or 4 times, that was fine. But in the main arena at the same time, they were having a helicopter rescue display on. And suddenly a helicopter flew over no more than 30 or 40 feet above us. And the downdraft sent the dogs crazy, and music stands went everywhere, and they're still finding bits of music in Dagenham from that day even today, aren't they? So, you know, we had some good times, some good adventures. I won't tell you about the time, because we used to do the old folks' homes and play the stripper for some reason. But I think we'll leave that under wraps for now.
One of the old folk there took off his shirt and he had a string vest, and it was a real laughter. In the actual days that we went into the old folks' homes, it was really unique. We brought a lot of joy into those old folks. We can only play very few tunes and very few music. You know what the first one we played?
The Toreadors.
Toreadors, that's right. One we got into an old folks' home, and we're all youngsters, all our youngsters, and one of them shouted, "Call the police, we're being invaded," you know, but absolutely brilliant.
Indeed it was. It was a great grounding for myself. So, you know, we wanted to say thank you, Peter, for all your work in helping us in the early days and supporting us right through now, and to recognise that you are now our band honorary president. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. You know, to create a band like this, it needs a lot of work and a lot of helpers, you know, and I'm very, very proud that the fact that they're doing so well, but it doesn't appear. You know, there's a lot of work that goes in to create this concert, and with Jeanette and a band of helpers, they're in good hands. So thank you so much.
Mortal. This is a bit loud, isn't it? Hang on. Oh, that's better. Right, that's better. Can you still hear me at the back? Jolly good. More music. This is a little selection of musical theatre tunes. I like a bit of musical theatre, and because I'm stood here, I get to pick a lot of what we play. So you won't ever see a concert I'm conducting without at least one show tune in it. But we're going to give you a selection from a 1960 musical, which has been delighting audiences ever since, and it's a selection from Oliver.
Okay, next we have something which we're very proud of, somebody we're very proud of. We had Sam join our band as a beginner not that long ago really, and he's come on in leaps and bounds, and so we thought, right, it's time he needs to do a solo. So we didn't give him any choice in the matter, but luckily he said yes. And of course we're going to really miss him because he's going to uni in autumn, so we're making the most of it now. We're not letting him leave. He's got to play whenever he's back on leave. But anyway, do enjoy his solo.
For those of you who didn't recognise that, it was Leroy Anderson's Syncopated Clock, written all the way back in 1945, which is long before Sam was born or thought of. But a lovely solo. Another round of applause for Sam. A slight change of pace now. We're going to play you something that's quite brass bandy. It's written for the North Country. And it's a pastoral, so it's quite a peaceful, contemplative piece of music, and it's called North Country Pastoral.
Hello everybody. My name's Dave. I'm your new chairman, or as I like to call us, the reluctant chairman, because no one else wanted the job. But Peter's left us, he's joined another band, and we're very sorry to see him leave. But there's a few thank yous that need to go around before I introduce the next piece of music. So thank you for Peter for all your years of service. I can't miss out Lynette, because she never really gets a thank you, but she's the real stalwart of the band, does all the donkey work, so thank you for that. And the other thank you is for Andrew, because Andrew stepped in when we needed a conductor. He's been there for a couple of years. He was also Nat's reserve, and I don't even notice, but he used to sit at the back playing the trombone, and if Nat couldn't make the concert or he couldn't get through the concert, Andrew was ready to step in. So this next piece of music is called Children of Sanchez, and it happens to be a piece of music that Nat really loved, and he jazzed it up a little bit. You'll note there's a couple of musicians. We've got some great musicians in the band. I'm not one of them, by the way. But we've got 2 or 3 people in the band that are going to stand out on this piece of music. So we've got Phil and Dan, and Peter's going to join in, and it's a great piece. But this is our little tribute to Nat. So thanks very much, everyone. Here's another little section. One more job. Thank you, guys. And this is for you. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to point out that Peter has actually moved away. He hasn't just gone and joined another band. He's actually moved away to the point that commuting here is just beyond the pale. He hasn't just abandoned Pavilion for greener fields. And yes, I have been helping out since Nat sadly died earlier this year. I'm bridging the gap between Pavilion auditioning new musical directors. I conduct another band. I don't really want to conduct 2, because otherwise I get no time on my sofa. But I've had a great time helping the guys out while they're sourcing a new replacement conductor to take them forwards. And yes, our next piece, Children of Sanchez. So Chuck Mangione number from the film of the same name. We've played with it slightly, and you'll notice, hold it up, the boys are being allowed to use trumpets, which I wouldn't normally allow, because we don't have trumpets in a brass band, we have cornets. Can you hold a cornet up, Mike? So see the difference? Okay, we don't normally allow those in these bands. They're for kind of jazz and orchestras and things. The cornet sound blends better with the other instruments, but you'll see why we've done it. Gentlemen, take your places, please. There's always complicated logistics for these things. I'm always worried that I'm just going to take one step back too far and collapse into the audience. So I've managed to avoid that so far. Right, are we good? Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, Pavilion's take on the Children of Sanchez.